Am I too loud?
I don't know.
Sound good to me.
Hello. Check. Maybe.
No, you're good.
You sound phenomenal.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Do a little Frank Sinatra or something for us.
Probably need 3 more of these.
Only 3?
Wow. You know Frank Sinatra, man? That's pretty badass, kid.
No.
Oh, shit. That's
Maybe some red hot chili peppers.
There we go. I like that. All right, guys. We're recording, so. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beer Fish Fanatics. This is Grandy with My Pop Fishing. We got
Kit with the Fishing Kit YouTube channel and TikTok now.
TikTok. Dude, he's blowing up, guys. You guys got to check this stupid thing. This is the thing. This app is, I mean, obviously everybody knows about this. He posted a video of him filleting a freaking walleye.
Walleye, yes.
That's it. Wasn't anything extravagant. He was just filleting a walleye.
Okay.
And it freaking, how many?
370,000 right now.
Did you do the zipper to take the bones out?
I was just like they're short clips, so they're 1 minute clips.
Yeah.
So you can only squeeze in so much.
Yeah.
And man, people were critical of my filleting.
Yeah. He got reamed. He was just like, God, you're so slow. I would have done 10 by now. He was like, the cesspool is very real there.
like, oh, you need a sharper knife. Like, oh, I could have done 10 in the same time you did that one. Like, you didn't do this. You didn't get the cheeks. You didn't get the wings. Like, don't worry, I got the wings and cheeks.
Yeah.
I just can't squeeze all that in.
There you go.
Like, the cesspool is broad and deep.
Yeah, it's pretty toxic. I call it tick-toxic.
Yes.
TikToks. I love it. So everybody's listening, watching. We're actually on site up here in Ames. We're at, did I pronounce this? I hope I pronounced this shit right. Is it alluvial?
Alluvial, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. What's it mean?
Alluvium
is the sediments that deposit in the river valley. You know, when the erosion happens on top of the hill and runs down the river, then the flood comes up. The alluvium or the alluvial deposits are what is left behind after a flood. Thank you, Mr. Science.
Wow.
That's my gig.
I had no idea there was that much meaning behind
That's why he's here.
And, you know, just so everybody's wondering, okay, that voice has got to be familiar if you guys are listening to this on, you know, just downloading it. So we have Mr. Jeff Kopaska with the Iowa DNR joining us. And we have Mr. Man of the Hour, Hank Kohler here. He's joining us fresh off his trip, and that's kind of why we came up here. Obviously, Cy-Hawk week, and it's kind of cool because, you know, my Hawk's going to win tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
Or so you hope and pray.
There we go. So
you live in a world of illusion.
We're making our audience choke over there.
It's all right. You know, I mean, hey, like you said, truth is, you know, hard to swallow. Is that what they say? The truth pill is hard to swallow? I think that's yeah.
We're going to start seeing like tomatoes and stuff flying.
It's all good. So, but, you know, we decided, you know, what would be better, you know, to have Cy-Hawk week. We'd be up here, come to Ames. We have these two gentlemen. Like I said, Hank just got done with his trip. So we wanted to know a lot more how it was, you know, how it went. And this is the first time we actually got to meet them in person, you know, obviously, too. So it's kind of cool to kind of get our asses up here and get a chance to come meet the legends, two legends here. So technically, okay, this is Beer Fish Fanatics, right? BFF, right? So this just fits, right, Kit?
Yeah, 2 BFFs. we're among giants, like literal giant and, you know, and a figurative giant over here.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we're sitting down, so if people can't see the tallness of, we look like we match up, you know, okay, sitting down.
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta stand up or sit up a little bit.
Yeah. How tall are you?
About 6'7".
Oh Lord, yeah. So I think we came up to his chest.
He's got 1 foot and 3 inches on me. That's crazy.
That's it? That's it? Not bad. But anyway, so gentlemen, cheers. Thank you for inviting us to come down or up here.
Well, thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
I'm drinking the. All right, I'm going to have Jeff explain this one because this is the one I have to bring to my wife. So I promised her because she can't have any lactose right now. So what is this one again?
That is the No Mood. So the version 1.0 was a milk stout. This is an oat milk stout. So no milk stout.
Oh.
Hence the name No Moo.
Yep.
Clever.
And I think that the original version also has the toasted marshmallows in it. So it's called Mallow Mood Milk Stout. It's fantastic.
I might have to take that
Yeah.
home for myself.
Yeah. And that one's on nitro. So if you do take some home, you have to drink it tonight. Otherwise, it'll go flat by tomorrow.
Ah, that's well.
Well, it's Friday
It's tough
night.
work if you can get it. It's Friday night. Yes, just for those of you playing along at home, it is 5 o'clock on Friday night, and I am not on the clock for the Iowa DNR.
There we
I'm
go.
enjoying a beer.
Love it. Love it.
You got that disclaimer in.
Yep, need to do that.
And it's 5 o'clock on Friday. And I don't work for anybody and haven't for years, so it doesn't matter.
So that's funny. So Hank, so everybody, if you guys didn't listen to our previous podcast that we had, Hank and his son Andy's over here. By the way, he's behind the camera. We'll see if he can jump on a little bit later. But we had him on our podcast, and he was kind of telling us about an upcoming trip. If you guys haven't read the book, go read the book. This Water Runs North. And that was back how many years ago? That original
42
trip.
years ago. That we did that trip in 1979.
So just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a background, there was a book that was written, and Hank was on there where he took a trip crazy when you were 20 odd years old.
I was 27.
27?
The other guys with me, my brother and my friend Rich, my friend Danny, they were low 20s. In fact, I think the two of them were 22, and Denny was only 20.
Wow. And you guys, go read the book, because they took a trip up north, hence the name of the book.
Yeah, we left west central Minnesota by where we have a little cabin, and we thought we'd follow the water as far as it goes. It took us to Hudson Bay, about 1,300 miles, and a tremendous trip. It was the Red River watershed to start with, and then, of course, we had to paddle along the east shore of Lake Winnipeg, which is over 300 miles long. Mm-hmm. Then we had another 400 miles of absolute pristine wilderness, just drinking out of the lakes and streams and catching fish for food.
Yeah, easy trip. Anybody could have done that, I'm just saying.
What was the motivation behind that trip? Like how does somebody just go like, all right, let's just go canoe from Minnesota all the way up to Alaska?
It wasn't Alaska. It was still in Manitoba. It's a great question, though, kid. It's just when I was a little boy fishing up there with my dad one time, he asked me where the water went that was raining on us. I told him smartly it goes to the Gulf of Mexico, and he corrected me immediately. He said this water all flows north. And ever since then, I think I was about 12, I thought, why not do that? Why don't we see if we get in canoes and go from right here to where the water ends up? And of course, I got my brother excited about it, and that guy Rich who's sitting over there excited about it. And finally, in 1979, we quit talking about it and did it. And we had no sponsorship. We had no reason to do it except that we wanted to challenge the adventure and for the fun. It was really a lot about fishing, because we knew once we got past Lake Winnipeg, we're going to be on rivers and lakes up there that hardly ever see a person or a lure. And so, a lot of it was just for the fishing adventure, and then just to see if we could do it. So we didn't have any pressure on us. We could have quit any time,
Nice.
So and we kept going, and the fishing was spectacular,
So
absolutely spectacular.
How many miles do you think it was?
It was about 1,400.
1,400.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
We can do that tomorrow, Kit. Anytime.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll go down to Red Rock and we got camp. Like, man, I got to paddle like a mile to go to camp. Ooh, I don't know.
Let alone 1,500.
Well, all you do is you look at it, kind of like the trip we did this summer. You can't look at it in entirety and go, oh my gosh, I'm going to try to go almost 2,000 miles on the Leaf River, the Crow Wing, and the Mississippi, and see if we can do it in under 70 days. I mean, that is imposing. That kind of gets, you're thinking, well, I don't know about that. But if you just break it down into a day, and then 3 days or maybe a week, and all you didn't do is say, hey, we're going to float down this river for 30 miles a day. How about that? Sounds good. Wake up the next day and go, hey, let's do it again. And you just keep piling those together, and pretty soon you've gone a long way.
So speaking of, the trip that Hank was just talking about, how did that come about? Because he just got done taking a trip. Instead of going north, he went south.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Can you explain to us? And just, if you want to start from the beginning, how was the trip? And, was it all that you expected and more?
It was all of that and more, Grandy. And how it started was a year ago this January. I was going up ice fishing to our little cabin up there, and I crossed this little tiny Leaf River, which is what goes from Leaf Lake down to the Mississippi and down to the Gulf. And the Leaf Lake is where we started to went the other direction, 42 years ago. And as I crossed the river, seriously, it was just like one of these epiphany things that hit me. I thought, I need an adventure. Why don't I start at the very same place and go all the way the other direction? And it just hit me, why not? I mean, it just was a great feeling to think of doing something kind of special, but I didn't want to do that just for the adventure and the fun and the challenge. I thought at my age, and to do it, I'm going to need a bunch of help. I'm going to have to call people that can help me paddle. I'm going to have to get not money to do it, but I wanted a reason to raise money for a good cause to make it worthwhile to do it. Because I've been to all these fabulous places up in Canada and Montana and different places. I could tell you they're so beautiful, but I have no knowledge or I don't have any expertise in protecting them. But I thought, you know what, I'll bet I can make some calls, find out from other people that are smarter than me if I could get people to donate for this excursion, and kind of using the uniqueness of starting from the very same spot that we went north from, this time go south, and see if we can't raise money for good conservation efforts. So I called Dr. Rick Cruz, who's the head of the Iowa Water Center and a fishing partner of mine. And through his knowledge, we partnered with the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium in Dubuque, met fabulous people up there. And they have what they call their Take Care program, which is conservation action through advocacy, research, and engagement, where they engage, involve, and impact up to 5,000 young people a year from middle school through college. I don't know all the nuts and bolts of it, but basically they're teaching them to do the right things for Mother Earth, to help with the watershed, take responsibility for where they live and make it better. And I thought, boy, that's a perfect way. If I can get people to donate just because I'm paddling down a river to give something that helps in the future, boy, that's perfect. And that's just what we did.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That is pretty cool. And then,
Thank you.
What was the exact mileage of the paddle? Was it similar to the?
It was more.
Was it more?
Now, if I would have started at Lake Itasca and gone all the way to the Gulf, what they call a source to sea trip, that's over 2,300 miles. But I wanted to start, of course, at the very same spot where we went to Hudson Bay. So I was actually on the Leaf River for only about 45 to 50 miles. That's the entire length of that tiny stream. And it flows into the Crow Wing, which once again, then I was only on the Crow Wing for about 50 miles, and then we joined the Mississippi. So I had about 100 miles of two smaller streams, but I cut off a couple hundred miles of the Mississippi because I didn't start at Itasca. And then when we got to the end, you have two choices. You can keep going down the Mississippi through Baton Rouge and New Orleans and get to the Gulf that way. Or you can take a right and go out of the main channel into what's called the Chafalaya River through the Chafalaya Swamp, which heads kind of southwest. It cuts off a couple hundred miles of the Mississippi, but then you have about 130 miles of the Chafalaya. And so we did that, mostly for the safety, because I read many accounts. There's some people out there called river gators from down Louisiana, and they strongly suggest that you don't keep following the main channel through Baton Rouge and New Orleans because of the barge and ocean tanker container ship traffic. It's real dangerous for like kayaks and canoes. Now, people do it, but I thought, well, why? I mean, I don't need that extra tension or thought process of maybe we're in danger at times. So we got off on a smaller river and we got to go through the swamp. We got to see alligators. We got to see all the cypress trees and the birds and stuff. It was fabulous. So anyhow, that's a real long answer to your question. It was about 1,900 miles total.
Wow.
So was there any certain stretch that really stands out for you? I mean, I'm sure there's like so many, but is there any particular one that just stands out?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of them. First of all, of course, the beginning, the Leaf River is basically only 20 feet wide. So I'm in a kayak by myself then. It's a very small stream, but I wanted to be able to say I started there. And I'd actually kayak part of it earlier this spring and last fall just to see what it was like, because I'd never been on it before. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to run into fences or beaver dams and that. So that was really cool. A real stretch. Of course, I was just by myself, very small, intimate stream. So that was very special. And then just to see the difference from what I was on to, 50 days later, what the river looks like that I'm on. Because once you get past St. Louis and you get the Ohio coming in and then the Arkansas and the White, et cetera, and you've already had, the Des Moines River and the Upper Iowa, all the ones along here in the Wisconsin, the Rock. I mean, the thing gets ginormous. there's times that you're floating along and you seriously, you're in a river that's 2 miles wide or more.
Jeez.
Wow.
So that change was pretty cool. And then the very end, now the Chafalaya, we were only on it for like 5 days, but that was really a highlight too, because that is so different than what you see around here. The birds you see are different. Of course, you got alligators. I mean, that was really cool from a kid from Iowa. I'm hearing things I haven't heard before. Even the frogs are different, So, and of course, the temperatures were, heat index is 109 all the time. But, anyway, yeah, every part of the trip had its own uniqueness and own either pleasure or worry, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say was your biggest challenge doing this trip? That you would say, like, you know what, you didn't expect it. I guess you could say, was there a specific challenge that came up that it was unexpected?
Yeah, I guess one of the biggest challenges would have been just keeping us supplied with water and ice. But I did expect that. I knew how that was going to, every fourth day we needed ice and water. So we would have to either look at our map and say, hey, there's a little town here. Let's see if there's a convenience store. The one good thing is we had cell service almost all the time. So you could Google map, where you are. Heck, we had people, that could call us and help us or whatever. That was expected, though. The challenge that was unexpected, I actually lived in I lived in Muscatine, Iowa for about 4 years, right on the Mississippi River. And I fished it a bunch, so I was kind of familiar with the river. But the river there, compared to the river like at Memphis and Vicksburg and that, is so different. And the currents that it has and the whirlpools that are created, I don't know why. They just appear. You can hear them all of a sudden, whoosh, and there's big old whirlpool going over there, the one over here. And I mean, there's things that created tension because of unfamiliarity, and it would scare you at times. There's things that happen that you just wonder, the power of this river. Here's an example. They have channel markers or buoys. And as we're going downstream, the red ones are on our port side, the green ones are on our starboard side. And they mark the channel that has to be at least 9 foot deep for the barges and their tows to be able to go through it. Now, obviously, you get way down south, the channel's much deeper than that, but they still have the buoys out there to mark them. Well, these things are about 4 feet in diameter and about 8 feet high. And they're on cables then that are anchored with some huge weight down at the bottom. And as we went along on all the hours and all the miles of the trip, we watched 4 of them disappear. I mean, we're going along, and there it is. It's 5 feet out of the water, and it starts woggling and going under, and before we get to it, it's gone. And by the time you get up there, you don't even see any riffle or waves or anything. Just disappear. We watched it happen 4 times. Whoa. And so what causes that? Did its anchor start rolling with the current? Is there a huge tree under there that caught its cable? I mean, we don't know. I don't know. I tried to read as many accounts as I could of other people that have done like the source to sea or parts of it. And one of the things they said, one of the dangers is what's called a pop-up buoy. And I'm thinking, what is that? And they go, well, you could be very unfortunate to be going along, and unbeknownst to you, all of a sudden a buoy that you never knew was there will pop straight out of the water and capsize you. And of course, I'm reading that account going, I'm sure that's going to happen. But then after you saw some disappear in front of you, you go, well, they're probably going to come back up somewhere.
Wow.
So, yeah, those things I wasn't prepared for that much power or mystery, I guess you could say, of the river. Okay. And so it kept us on our toes. If I'm floating down the Boone River to the Boyne River, it's just a leisurely, fun day. You're fishing, you're talking, you're laughing. For much of the Mississippi, we were not on the edge of our seat, but we always had to be wary of what we're doing and where we're at and how things are going.
Interesting.
Was there ever a time where you were like, man, I don't know about this whole thing. Like, ooh, like what did I get myself into?
There were some times that, yeah, I mean, you just kind of, you'd go to sleep at night and think, well, we made it through this day. And then you start thinking, well, yeah, if we got another 40 of those days, what are the odds that maybe something goofy could happen, There was one real short period of time, lasted about a half hour, 45 minutes, coming into the lock and dam up at Clinton that we got into some waves we shouldn't have been in. It was a mistake. It's got to be my fault because I was in charge of this, but there were 3 of us in because there was a friend in a kayak going along with us too, and then I had a really good guy up in front of the canoe, and we were only a half hour away from getting through that lock and dam, and it's getting towards evening, and I said, we can go through these lily pads over and camp here for the night, or if you think that it's safe enough to head, I said, we'll make it a team vote. So we all voted, the wind isn't going to come up in the fall, and we're here right now, so let's go. But the wind did come up very, very strong, and it's coming from across miles and miles of that pool going into that dam, and we got some bigger waves than what the canoe should be handling. We took water in, and we were able to get off and out on the riprap. Fortunately, just started throwing everything up on the bank. Kind of looked like a debris field from a plane crash, but at least we were safe up on the rock. So that's something that I wish wouldn't have happened, but it was only for about a half hour.
Oh, not bad. Did you get a chance to get on the trip?
I took 1 day with Hank.
Okay.
So he floated into Dubuque, where the museum is, on a Friday evening. And they had a big doings there that night. And my daughter had some softball games that Friday night. So I was here in Ames. I got up bright and early Saturday morning, drove from Ames up to Dubuque, met Hank at the museum, and we put into the river there at the museum, and then I floated down to Bellevue with them. What we learned that day is that 2 guys in a canoe are unbelievably faster than 1 guy in a kayak. Not even close. So in the morning, we're going along and they're just doing their leisurely thing. And if you're in a kayak, you kind of I'm just gonna tink, 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 go along. No, for me to even think about keeping up with them, it was the drive and yank, and after I did that for a half hour to an hour, and I'm struggling to
I loved it. I
keep
just
up
to watch Jeff work so hard.
I was busting my butt, and I'm just that's it. Now the great thing is that I've known Hank forever, and Hank does the same thing every day. He stops and takes a nap. Okay? So I knew that some semblance of salvation was coming at some juncture, that we would get to stop and I would get to rest. And so that did occur halfway through the day. And we did 25, 26 miles.
27 miles or so, yeah.
Okay.
We're heading for Bellevue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the afternoon, I was just I'm doing this. This is as fast as I can comfortably go the rest of the day. We will get there, and I don't care what time it is, but when we get there, I'll get there. But I am not trying to kick butt the entire afternoon, because this is impossible. And I'm a big guy. I feel like I'm kind of strong-ish, and I go to the gym. I'm in A shape. I don't know if I'm in shape, but I'm in A shape. And I was just that is it. I am done. I can't do this
anymore. I was surprised at that. I really thought that a kayak was a little sleeker, and of course our canoe's really weighted down with everything we got in it. Mm-hmm. 2 people and all our gear and all the water and stuff. And yeah, Jeff, we wore him out.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
It was, but I think the deal is the canoe just tracks, and the kayak, as you go, you kind of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and the canoe just kind of cuts through the
it
water.
Cuts, and you're always fighting that last stroke that's pulling you off one way or another. Okay. I even had my kayak that has a little bit of a keel to it, but it was always, not the straight line path that the canoe takes.
Oh, thanks for the credit there that we were actually going straight.
You didn't have a beer until late in the day when the pontoon stopped by and gave us some beers. So
yeah, that was your friend from that was our friend from Bellevue.
Yes,
He had a friend up there that works for the DNR came by in the DNR boat.
No, it was his personal boat. It wasn't DNR.
Okay,
boat.
it was okay.
Honest to goodness, it was
his personal boat. It was his personal boat, and we don't know who he was. I don't know who he worked for, but he did throw Jeff threw him a rope. All I knew is he went by us towing Jeff for about 2 miles.
Yes, it's true. They tuckered me out. It was I had no idea I was going to work that hard that day.
Interesting.
So you just thought you were just there for like a leisure paddle.
I didn't think it was quite going to be that easy, but I had no idea it was going to be as hard as it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I spent one of the 70 days with Hank.
Yeah, 64.
64.
164.
164th.
We had two other friends that showed up on Lake Pepin. The first evening we were there, from Ames here, Corey and Craig Montgomery, a brother team, and they had a really fancy, sleek wooden canoe that they'd made or bought from a friend or whatever, one of those cedar canoes, and they were so excited they're going to go with us 2 or 3 days, camp with us and everything. But Lake Pepin it's a pool, of course, of the Mississippi, but it's also kind of a natural lake. It hasn't been there for decades, or centuries, I should say. It's about 30 miles long. And the waves would get, about a foot high, which for our canoe was, that's not good, but no problem, really. But for their real slick, go-fast vessel, they couldn't do it. That was too much rough water for them, so they had to quit after just half a day.
Wow.
And get to shore, or they'd have been in trouble because the wind got a little stronger, and if they'd have been, because this is a real wide place too, if they're a mile out from shore, and they would have been in big trouble. So they were smart enough to say, hey, it ain't gonna work. So we had friends come with us at times, but it didn't always work out perfectly. So.
Interesting. So the listeners and watchers probably wondering, like, these guys are jamming. It's because it's music night. I forgot. So they're doing sound checks and everything, so you guys can hear the music in the background. And okay, I have to ask, guys, what is that black bug?
So I don't know what its official name is called, but it's people often refer to it as a picnic bug. Picnic bug, and they're the little black ones. So we have them all the time when we're playing softball games in the late summer and fall. That they
beer beetles.
Okay, another name.
No, that's just what people call them because they're in my beer.
Protein.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Protein, right? So during this trip, how was the fishing, and what were you targeting mostly?
I didn't fish very much,
Really?
as strange as that may sound. We fished quite a bit almost every morning and evening, mostly evenings when we were up in Minnesota on the Crow Wing and on the Mississippi. My friend Don Smalley would constantly catch nice smallmouth that we'd let go, of course.
Wait. Your friend Don Smalley kept catching smallmouth bass.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, he was my first paddler. He went for 2 weeks with me. He was an old college buddy, and he had this knack for just throwing a meps and catching smallmouth like he was born to do it. And I'd try, and I had a gar on once, snagged a buffalo, stuff like that. But he kept catching he caught a nice walleye one day, but it was not the time so we let it go. Anyhow, as the trip evolved, and Don wasn't with me anymore. And as we went along the Iowa, Illinois, because the license I had, I did some fishing, but I didn't catch anything. I had a day off in Bellevue with a DNR man in his personal boat. Took me fishing.
That's my buddy Scott. Yes.
Yeah, Scott Gritters took me fishing below that dam there, and we caught a bunch of largemouth, a couple smallmouths, some northerns he kept to eat. I had fun with a big old dogfish or bowfin. So that's the most fishing I did. Once we got further down, I'm struggling. I'm not very techno savvy, and so I needed to get more fishing licenses. And I get in on the Missouri thing, and next thing I know, I bought 1 day license. So I fished for catfish that day, didn't get any. And then the next day, my buddy Ryan started paddling with me, and he had a year-long one for Missouri. So I just let him do the fishing. And he caught 4 nice channel cats one night. We ate every inch of them. And then another night, he caught 2 of them. We ate both of those.
Nice.
But no, I didn't keep buying the licenses as I went along. To be honest with you, earlier in the trip, we were trying to do these 30 miles a day, and to do that, we had to paddle about 10 hours, and I was just beat. Later in the trip, the river was going a lot faster, and we could get those 30, 35, maybe 40 miles in 7 hours or 6 hours, but it was so hot. I mean, it's just a heat and humidity. You get done, and all you want to do is have enough strength to get that tent up and sit in that chair and watch the sunset go down. You just don't, it takes all the energy out of you.
Yeah.
So I didn't fish as much as I certainly thought I would have.
Now, when I was struggling in the kayak, he was over there casting away the whole stinking
And I wasn't
time.
catching anything.
You did not catch a thing, but you definitely were fishing. And I'm watching him going, that son of a gun.
This episode was helped brought to you by our newest sponsor, Kalona Brewing Company. They're a brewery out there in eastern Iowa. So if you're in the area, make sure to stop by Kalona and check out their brewery. Great food at the restaurant there, great beer, obviously. If you're in the Midwest, check out any Hy-Vees. I believe they carry the 6-packs, and they have different types of flavors. So you guys are going to want to, definitely try that out. And I think throughout this whole process, Fishing Kid and myself for Beer Fish Fanatics, we're going to be doing some giveaways here and there. If you guys can go ahead and tag us here and there with your Kalona beer. So other than that, enjoy the episode, guys. Hello. Can you hear me?
Well, hi there.
So we had to go do a quick refill.
Did you push
of
record
beer.
on the thing?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I hope so.
I don't want to, I don't want us to go get home like, oh, I didn't hit record.
So in case anybody's wondering, Jeff got a little bit younger here.
Better looking.
Oh,
I didn't say that.
Gained a few pounds.
The beard color changed.
So FYI, we have Andy here. He's Hank's son, and you were Hank was just mentioned you were on the trip quite a bit, huh? With him?
I wasn't. I wasn't as much as I or probably my dad wanted me to be. I did get to spend 2.5 days on the river with him. It was an incredible experience, but not as much as I certainly wanted to be. I've got two little girls at home, and work commitments and everything like that. So no, I wasn't able to spend all summer floating down the river like most would want to do. But it was an incredible experience, for those short days.
What was what would you say was like the best part for you?
Just spending time with my dad, and I'd known about the trip. Here's the deal. And the first time we got together for that podcast last year, I told you guys that I grew up with his first trip. I'm talking weekly going to bed stories about that trip to Hudson Bay, and asking him to tell us about this experience or this memory, things like that. So I grew up with the Hudson Bay trip, and when he brought the Mississippi River Gulf of Mexico trip to the family, certainly wanted to be a part of it. And it was fabulous. But just spending time with him, I'm not the hardcore adventurer like my old man. So I did get to fish. I fished that one night. We had a fabulous campsite.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was an island, and we had great flow on both sides of the island, and we're off the downstream side. For us folks up here in the middle of Iowa, I think we talked about it. God, if we had this set up like on the Des Moines River, it'd be a hotbed fishing wise, because it was perfect. I mean, we had this long island and then just sandbar and then just cut off with a drop off. Great current, and I was able to catch a really nice flathead rod and reel, and had a great time with that. So that was fun. But just camping and canoeing with old man was great. The thing that hasn't been brought up yet, that I'll do it, was the dang jumping carp. The Asian carp
They were terrible,
crazy, and they really affected me. I got on the canoe for a couple of days and got off and was like, all right, good luck, Dad, peace out. But that last day that I was with him, you'd be paddling along, and one of these big head carp would just out of nowhere, out of left field, just fly up over the canoe, and it kind of affected me. I was kind of rattled, but he dealt with it for another month.
Yeah. So, I don't think they're big heads. Weren't they the silvers?
Oh, silvers. Well, no, I think they're big head too. I think if you get above a 10-pounder, I think that might be. Jeff would know. Oh, only all jumpers are silvers. Then incorrect. Yeah, they're all silver carp.
Wow.
They were terrible. You never knew when it was going to happen, and sometimes 2 or 3 of them be coming through. They'd land in the canoe and start flopping around, and their slime and their scales, and knocking things over. We kept a cover over most of it, but like where I would sit in the back of canoe was probably about 4 feet landing strip for them that they could get in there and start banging around. So,
and it wasn't them actually jumping. It was the fear of when they're going to do it.
Oh,
it was like, so you're going along and you know what's going to happen, but you don't know when. You don't know when, and you're like, and all of a sudden, bam, one would come
and
right up.
These are 7 to 12 pounds. I mean,
Right.
these aren't little tiny.
Yeah.
These aren't like white bass. These are big dogs flying at you.
Yeah. They could do some damage if they hit
absolutely.
you. Yeah.
It quickly went from exciting, because I'd never experienced it. I'd always heard about it, watched videos about it, the jumping carp, and it went from excitement to having it happen to then fear of not knowing when it will happen.
Yeah,
But
really hating it. Yeah. One thing I want to add about Andy catching that nice flathead on that beautiful island is he had taken along, I guess it's called a cast net, which I'd never used one. He'd never used one.
I'd
but
never
He brought
used
one along, so if you guys probably have used them, you know, you don't just take it out of the wrapper and start catching bait. You know?
Horrible at it. Horrible at it.
So he's got this deal, and he's
so
tangled up, and things are, but he kept at it. Pretty soon, he's going, oh, look at that, and he made it go. And next thing you know, he was probably more excited about getting those shad in that net so he could actually now fish than he caught the nice flathead on one.
It was crazy because, the throws of that cast net, let's say I did it 50 times, only one cast I got gizzard shad, and they were big ones. They were really big, perfect for bait. But that was the only bait that I was hoping to have or was able to acquire. So I was ecstatic. I mean, I was around the point from the island. I came back screaming at my dad, I got him. And then was able to catch a nice flathead on it.
Yeah, after you put that on for bait, he had that flathead within 10 minutes.
Wow. Nice. It was really cool. It was really neat.
Andy sounds like me, because in case I don't know, he never posted it, thank goodness. So I actually learned how to throw a cast net from that guy.
Okay,
I did teach him.
Yeah. He taught me, because one day we were meeting up to go fishing, right? And next thing I know, I threw probably at least 40 times, and it was like, and I was getting tired.
I waited till the 35th time. I was like, all right, this is how you do it.
That's exactly what he did. He waited to watch me throw it 30 to 40 times before he finally dude, this is what you need to do.
But Kit's got to be really good at it, because it helps, I think, to be taller. To be able to flip that thing, or maybe it's just because I'm so bad at it.
Well, the thing is, I taught him to throw it better than I could ever throw it.
Ooh,
that's over.
The student overtakes the teacher.
I was like, wow, that's like a circle. Mine are usually like tacos or beans.
It's folding over in itself,
I'm surprised you never showed it. Yeah, maybe we'll see if we can find that video so you can.
I thought I posted it on Facebook.
Maybe.
Do you wrap it around your arm?
Just the rope.
Just the rope.
Just the rope.
Okay. All right.
But there's like I'll call it the Asian way.
Okay.
They'll throw it like on their shoulder, like on them, and then like put part of it in their mouth. Which is kind of gross. I mean, that's why I don't do it the Asian way. But for some reason, like I don't know how they set it all up on their shoulder, in their mouth, and they just throw it, and it just spreads out.
It is an art form, and I am not an artist.
I borrowed that from him this week when I camped on the Des Moines River, because I think that's how I'm going to get my bait, and I'm chucking that thing out, and it's like you said, it's folding over like a taco, and it's doing this. Finally, honestly, I got to where I'd get it spread out up as tall as I could. I'd just go, and it basically just drop it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there's so many shad in there about this long. I got it plenty for bait. Just basically going.
The day before we practiced in his front yard.
Horrible.
And I walked away. I was
Horrible.
like, good luck, Dad. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
As long as you can get some tangled in the net, you're all right. You're all right.
Yeah, but no, like you're saying, your excitement from that one cast, I know that feeling. Like that was awesome when you tossed those cast nets like that. I was like, it's definitely pretty cool. I
don't think we mentioned it, but what stretch did you hop in at?
Oh shoot, I don't even know. I ended in Hannibal.
Yeah, you
started in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you were north of Quincy, south of Keokuk.
Was it LaPorte, maybe?
Just south of Keokuk.
Yeah, it was just south of Keokuk,
It was just a boat ramp,
Iowa.
like you said, in the middle of nowhere.
It was a boat ramp in the middle of nowhere. I've got a yellow jacket in my beer.
Oh, you're brave.
That is
Didn't get me. But yeah, no, I started in the middle of nowhere, and ended in Hannibal, Missouri.
Yeah, it was cool. We pulled up in Hannibal then, and there happened to be one of those big old paddle wheel boats, from the 1800s in that park there, kind of a tour boat and that, and you just think you can just almost feel the history, of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, and Tom Sawyer and Huckle Finn and all those guys there. It's pretty neat.
Granny, you did ask earlier, to my dad, what was the biggest issue or concern or things that you had to overcome, and I was gonna mention it's finding somebody crazy enough to join you every day on this deal, and I say that with love, but you did how many different people sat in the front of the canoe?
I had 8 different paddlers as we went along. We had a couple that went a full 2 weeks.
Wow.
Andy was only like 2.5, 3 days. And another one, Jared from the museum, whose programs are going to get the donations. He went for 3 days. And then other good friends that would go from 5 or 8. I had one friend, he's the son of a friend, grandson of a friend of mine, that he's just turned 18 this month. So I had a young high school age guy that went with me for 5 days from below St. Louis for some. And I think it's something that maybe day to day, hour to hour, he didn't enjoy a whole lot. But when, he'll look back on it and go, God, that was pretty cool to be part of that. So, yeah, I was able to, I just went through my phone. I've tried to find people. Well, and obviously then what you end up with is old people, because you got to find people that
you guys are probably on the list.
Aren't doing anything, So I got people my age that I knew were friends from way back and weren't working anymore like me. So that's what we had for the most part. But we had Andy, of course. We had 2 guys from Ames. One's a younger guy that I play softball with, who's real good, and then we had a guy from Ames that could adjust his schedule because he's a fireman and an EMT. So of course he's big, strong, and it's always in composure. He was a guy that was in the front of the canoe when we were in that trouble at the Clinton Lock and Dam, and as I've told people, I said it's not just his physical ability, but in his job he has to stay calm. So he didn't panic or anything. He said, just, this is what we got to do. This is what we're going to get done, So that it worked well. I had fabulous people with me all summer.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So you started the trip solo, correct?
Yeah, because the first part, the river's too small for the canoe. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by too small, it was too shallow at places, but it didn't, for the most part, it doesn't go under bridges. It goes through culverts. So, I actually put like one video and some other pictures. I'm going through tubes that, I'm laying back as fat as I can, and then it knocked my hat off, and hopefully my hat would come down the end too. But, so yeah, that you couldn't canoe that. So once the Leaf River joined the Crow Wing River, I just went a little ways, and that's where my friend, my old college buddy, met with my canoe and our gear to go with the canoe from then on.
Okay, so from then on, was there any stretches where you were solo, or was somebody always there?
I was just 2 days I was solo, and that's after I dropped Andy off at Hannibal.
Oh, okay.
I was going to St. Louis, and that's just right at the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of July. Mm-hmm. It was really hard to find people that wanted to take, to be with me in that river instead of doing 4th of July stuff.
Right.
And so I could have just stopped there. I've got relatives that helped me a lot in St. Louis. They got me off the river. They did laundry for me and got out in a hotel. Anyway, it was just a real good break. Mm-hmm. But I thought, I looked at the weather reports. I saw what the river gauges were and everything. I thought, well, I'll go a couple days by myself. So I went about 2.5 days by myself, but the weather conditions were good. I didn't have headwinds, because that's where you'd have a problem keeping things going straight. And I knew I had a tailwind. I had good current. I went to like 3 locks and everything worked perfect. So, but yeah, I only had those few days by myself.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is there anything that you would change differently if you could go back and like, you know what? Shit, I should have planned this a little bit better, or a situation like, dang it.
You could always look at it and say maybe it could have done better, but I think the way to look at it is how fortunate we were with what we did do. the planning worked as far as how many days or how many miles per day we could go. Mm-hmm. It was very fortunate, the start date that I chose. And I just chose it because I thought June 3rd would be a lucky day. Well, if I would have backed that up, let's say to June 17th, 2 weeks later, where we were trying to start, there wouldn't have been enough water. It was historically dry up there this year. In fact, people are trying to do the headwaters of Mississippi that couldn't because they were just dragging or walking. And the Leaf River got down to almost nothing. So the start was perfect as far as water levels to be able to do it there. Okay. Plus, as you know, what if I'd have been 2 weeks late with the hurricane coming in? Mm-hmm. I probably couldn't even finish it. We'd have got like the Vicksburg and said, screw it, we're not going to go down into that. So, instead of saying, what should I have done different? I'm not sure if I would have been smart enough to do it any different. I mean, it just kind of worked. And I think I'm just very lucky about how some of the things did work out, especially with the people we would run into. We needed to get ice and water every fourth day. And we'd like to get off the river about every fifth day, sleep in a bed, or at least maybe not on sand. Put your tent up in grass at a campground or something and do some laundry or whatever. And through a Facebook group called Mississippi River Angels, who maybe will help us here, and then they've got contacts there, and then there's contacts here, and next thing you know, we're getting the mayor of Osceola, Arkansas, sitting with us and bringing us pizza. The head of the Chamber of Commerce and the city workers of Caruthersville, Missouri, who are now good friends of ours, put us up for a day. We just met fabulous people. There's a guy named...
Excuse me real quick.
Okay.
Gotta go blow my nose.
There's a guy down by Greenville, Mississippi named Big Mike. He's got a fishing camp on Lake Washington, which he says is the second best crappie lake in the world. But we had connections where he was going to have a guy pick us up at the river and take us to stay at a little cabin on his dime at his place. And we got to watch a crappie weigh in and stuff like that. And then he goes, well, how far are you going to go tomorrow? And I said, well, we try to go 30 to 40 miles. He says, shoot, I'll pick you up again. Says you can come back to the cabin, just leave your stuff there, and then the next day load it all up and go. So we had one day there that he took us to the river without our camping gear, without 12 gallons of water and all this and that. So now we got a nice light canoe to go because we went 40 miles to another boat ramp. He picked us up again and drove us back to the cabin and then took us back the next morning. So, I mean, and those people we didn't know at all 2 weeks prior to that. You just run into good people, really good people on that trip.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, would you say that's kind of part of the mystique about this trip? Was the greatest part was meeting these unbelievable people that you would never have met if you didn't take this trip, and then just hearing their stories and the shit that they've gone through, and it's just meeting these people.
Well, you're absolutely right, Randy. In fact, going back to that trip to Hudson Bay, there are people that live in southern Manitoba that they're in my phone. I could call them right now. And we met them 42 years ago this summer and just come up and knocked on the door and asked if we could camp in their yard, by their barn. Mm-hmm. And they're still our close friends today. Wow. And I'm guarantee you there's 2 or 3 people I've met on this trip that, 10 years from now, I could still go call them up or they'll come up here. There's 2 different groups down there. One from Caruthersville, Missouri, and another, Big Mike down there in Greenville, Mississippi. That I don't know if it'll happen, but they would like it to try to happen, and I would love it to try to happen. And that is, I've got something I can provide for them that they've never done. They did such a good job of helping me this summer, but those people have never ice fished.
Really?
Where they live, that latitude that's not available, they've seen it on TV is all. So I've promised them if they get up to Ames, then I'll take them up to our place in Minnesota. I'll get those people out on the ice, and that'll be fun.
Yeah. I mean, actually, we've done a lot of podcasts with a lot of people down south, in Hawaii and everything, and just the West Coast. And you're right. That's the first thing they're like, we never ice fish. And they say we see it all the time, and they freak out because
Well, drive them on the lake the first time.
Oh, I still get a little freaked out about driving on. I still, till this day, like even my brother-in-laws, because they're from Denver, because a lot of the spots that they ice fish at, they can't drive on.
Right, it's high mountain stuff.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, and when we started, because they came to visit us, and we would take them up to like Clear Lake, Okoboji, and that was the very first couple of times I think we started driving on the water. and I kid you not, everybody was on. I mean, half their body was outside the window while one guy was driving. I shit you not, everybody's like ready to bail. They're just like, this is not cool. It's not cool. They're just
and then when it cracks,
when you're driving. So, that'll be fun. Yeah, bring those Southerns.
I hope they can make it up. That'd be awesome.
I learned to drive probably as a 12-year-old or something on Big Creek.
Really?
Yeah, I mean
on the ice.
Yeah, I mean because we had a permanent shack on Big Creek, through the 80s, 90s, and that, and I mean, what are you gonna hit? I mean, an ice shack, So
that's true.
That was when I first got the keys and drove a little bit, but I remember that too in college. Taking buddies to go ice fishing on Hickory Grove or some other lake in central Iowa. And they knew they were going ice fishing, but I didn't say anything about driving on the ice. And
you just get to the access.
You'd come up to the boat ramp, be like just on the access, and I wouldn't say anything. And they're nervous as can be to walk on ice. But I would go up and, in my truck or, whatnot and be like, you know what? This looks thick. Why? Let's just drive on. Let's go. And I would start going out on the ice, and you're talking about seat belts, like you're saying, windows, like just people freaking out. And I'm just giggling as can be because there's 17, 18 inches of ice, and we've been driving on it,
for a month. Yeah.
But
oh man,
that's also how ice fishing in central Iowa was 20 years ago, 30 years ago too. So
I still get freaked out if I'm ever gonna drive on the ice. I'm just like, oh, I gotta see like 100 other trucks out there. All right, I'll follow those guys.
Yeah, you don't want to be the first one out. Why are you?
Wait a minute.
I try not to break that rule, but I do sometimes.
I was gonna say, everybody's like, "When's Hank driving?"
The sun just busted him out.
But if I do that, even though I've already walked out and I've drilled holes and I know I've got 16 inches or better, I'll still have no seatbelt on, a life jacket on, the windows rolled down, and the door cracked open.
Yeah, always
the first run.
Always trust the guy that's driving a vehicle with a life jacket on.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I've got the best first ice story though ever. So we went ice fishing on Hickory Grove many years ago. 3 of us are going to go test the ice. I'm the smallest. Me, Keith, and Leroy.
Yeah, that would have been a big trio.
That's a big trio, and that is not a group of people that should be the first ones out testing.
Or sit right next to each other in that little shack of mine.
We spaced out very well.
Man, actually, I think we're supposed to get a really
cold
winter.
Yeah,
that's the.
What I heard.
What's the forecast? That's what it's supposed
that's old farmers and.
Yeah. We'll see.
We don't know what.
There's not many old farmers left. I don't know how true that's going to be.
That's true.
What does Jeff think about that this winter? Do you kind of follow the almanac or?
I wait for the weather to happen.
Yeah.
There you go. Then you can't be wrong.
Yeah. Right.
And we're in Iowa. It changes.
Yeah.
I mean, tomorrow's supposed to be 100 degrees. And then Sunday is supposed to be, after the Hawkeyes win, it's supposed to be like 80 degrees.
I wonder if you could make.
It's going to be cold Sunday because if the Hawkeyes win, hell's going to freeze.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I love it.
I wonder if you could make money instead of a weather forecast, you do a nightly recap. This is our weather recap for the day. By the way, this morning, if you got up, this is what you had, and this is what we have now. Huh. Suppose you get sponsors for that?
That is an interesting idea.
You'd never be wrong.
You'd never be wrong. You're right. I don't know.
I'd stick to what you're doing, whatever it is.
I'm not doing much. But hey, by the way, speaking of, I appreciate so much you guys having us on again to talk about that trip.
Thank you.
But I haven't really mentioned, it was called One for Water, and that's the word 1, the number 4, and then the word water. Mm-hmm. And if you would go to the National River Museum /One for Water, there's still a funding site up. So there may be somebody that listens to this and goes, "God, that's kind of cool. It's a chance to pay it forward for the next generation to enjoy water and soil, trees, birds, everything that we cherish. How can we help them in the future?" And by donating to that cause, it'll help young kids and smart people do the right things for Mother Earth. It's kind of a little mantra I have is, if you could always look at the trash you see or the warming climates and everything else and give up and say, hey, it's not going to make any difference. But if we do that, then we are lost. Instead, we have to say, how can I be one that will make a difference?
Yeah.
And try to do something to help.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely put that in the show notes. We'll put the link to the website and everything. And then that kind of actually leads into just, I don't know if people are listening up to this point. We are going to do, I think we're going to do a cleanup in October. And I think we're going to be doing towards the end of October, probably at Big Creek. So cool. If any listeners are listening,
that is awesome.
Yeah, come meet us out there. We're probably going to get out there. Obviously having Jeff and just the Iowa DNR, just jumping on our podcast a lot, and we're just like, you know what, we'll help the Iowa DNR out and clean up some of the shit that we see all the time. I mean, it's a lot of shit.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like when we put in at rivers around here, like the Boone and Des Moines that I love so much, to canoe and paddle, I'll always take a bag along and pick up what's at that access. And I'm maybe I've just been lucky, but it seems to be a better conditions now than like 5 or 10 years ago. And especially it seems like, let's say like below the Fraser Dam, if I pick up what trash is there, and there'll be some, I could come back then maybe a week later, and a lot of times there won't be any more yet. It's almost like if you can keep it nice, they don't want to be the first ones to do something stupid to it.
Yeah.
So we almost got to get a network of people that are closer or whatever, that you do it on Thursdays, you do it on Tuesdays, I'll be there on Monday, and then it'll always be nice, because it is so nice to float down those rivers and not see trash. And unfortunately, this whole summer on the Mississippi, many times we're going past millions of beautiful trees, and the scenery was spectacular at times if we're not in the barges and the infrastructure. And we would pull up to what I call these willow groves. They have a different type of willow down there that gets about this big in diameter, but they don't have any leaves or branches until they get way up high, and then they've got a nice top. From a distance, you'd think you're on a lake way up in Ontario and just looking at pines. And then underneath, it's like almost a park, almost no undergrowth. I mean, it is so beautiful. But you set your tents up and you look around, you are always going to find a bottle there, a can there, and something there. So, I mean, you could, as pretty as it is from the distance, once you're there, there's trash all around you. And that's just sad, you know?
I've seen a change in social media, different things. People are calling out people for littering nowadays. I think back in the day, unfortunately, it was happening. There wasn't a platform to call people out, and you guys have done a great job, because you've done it for years now of getting people together to pick stuff up, calling people out for littering, and I'm proud of a lot of the fishing community that aren't standing for the places we love, here in Iowa, making sure that they're staying clean and.
Yeah, like Ada Hayden right here in Iowa, and I bike or walk around that, and you're hard pressed to find any litter to pick up, because there's so many people that when they do that, that's part of their activity, to pick up anything they see. And on a different area, but boy, I've noticed a very positive change, is where we ice fish Lake of the Woods in that southern, I call it the southern lobe, still in Minnesota waters, out of Wheeler's Point. Just 10 years ago, when all those wheelhouses and castles and stuff would leave, they'd just throw stuff wherever. And now this last few years, there's almost no litter. It's like people just finally put their foot down and said, this is crap, don't do it. And like Andy said, they're starting to point fingers and put some pressure on the goofballs, and it just looks so much better now. It really does.
Right. Like there's a saying that social media is like the worst thing, but when it comes to if you're in any of those ice fishing groups, like every time somebody leaves a big mess, you're getting called out.
For sure.
You are getting called out. So I guess social media is a double-edged sword.
That's the one. Yeah, you're right. That's the one positive.
Yeah, it's
thing.
a positive. In that case.
I agree.
You know what? If I could ever see this in my lifetime, and that is go fish below Saylorville on what I call the east side, and walk all the way down to that little point, where the water comes in by what's called the Cottonwood access or whatever.
Yeah.
And if I could ever walk down to that point and look around and not see a bunch of litter, I would die a happy man. But I have never seen that. I mean, you could go there, seems like every other day with a trash bag and fill up 3 of them. And I mean, that's just sad.
Same thing with Red Rock. I mean, we fish at Lake Red Rock quite a bit, and you're right. It's sad just to see, but I mean, on a like you're saying, the social media aspect is just getting the word out, and I do see a lot of, and then obviously with COVID last year and this year, there's a lot more fishermen out there,
absolutely.
a lot of newer that don't know any better. But I think having the social media did help that to educate them that pick up your line. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of newbies, when they put a new line on their reel, they just like cut it and just throw it. They don't understand how that affects the whole situation of the body that you're fishing at. But I think having social media, that's the one positive aspect. It helps teach them like, oh shoot, I should have picked that up, or they'll do it from this point forward. So
so we did sake fishing. Sean, he did a cleanup, I want to say 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Oh man, the trash. It's like people go out there with like full trash bags and dump it there. That's how bad it was.
Didn't you do it on the Iowa State football game day?
We probably did. We probably did, but man, I swear, it's like people are hauling trash out there to throw out there.
Yeah, that was the first one. I was so proud. I think that when I started following you, on social media and that, I was so proud of that. And I was like, shoot, it's the Iowa State game. I'm up in Ames.
Priorities,
But no, that's awesome that sake fishing and you guys did that.
That's awesome.
Like
I think we hauled out, I want to say 26, like those big black trash bags full.
Yeah.
And there was still like a ton left. Yeah. It was raining that day, so we had to stop.
Yeah.
And FYI, I just talked to Sean because I went fishing with him the other day. He will be there too to help us out at Big Creek and just clean up a little bit. So,
well, that'd be fantastic.
It'll be fun. We'll have some good stuff. We'll talk to. We'll have some beverages, good beverages. If you guys want to join us,
as long as we pick up after ourselves, right?
Yes, very true.
Absolutely.
There you go. So. What you got, Kit? I mean, this is fun, man. I'm ready to go in and have a couple more beers. But you got anything else for Hank and Andy? I mean,
So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, Hank, you're One for Water, or actually, we didn't even talk about your guide service.
We can do it. Do it real quick. We can do it.
Yeah, you want to just go over that real quick?
Okay, I have a so-called guide service.
Right, guide service.
Learn to Fish. Which I had to completely put on the back page, for this year and a half. First of all, COVID, and then because I was gone doing the trip. So I actually, I still have that website up, just Hank Kohler's Learn to Fish, and I put a deal in there that I've got a couple of weeks, last couple weeks in October with some openings. If anybody wants to go, what it'd be is basically we'd go up to my cabin in Minnesota, or they can find their own lodging up there. And then I've got some marvelous lakes within a half-hour drive of there. And we got one right in front of the cabin and one right behind it and all over. But as Jeff can ascertain, there's some really special ones up there. There's 1,048 lakes in Otter Tail County. Just in that county. Wow. And in a 30-mile radius so far, I've only been able to fish 97 of them. So I've got work to do.
Yes,
but as you can tell, if I fish 97 of them, I ought to be able to pick out 7 or 15 that are pretty darn good, pretty special. and as I tell people, that my price is very reasonable because it might be for a 3-day deal, and they're not going to fish out of a fancy schmancy boat at all. It's an old Lund with comfortable seats. I tell people, first of all, we're going to be safe, then we're going to be comfortable, and then we're going to be successful, because it's not the boat, it's the water it goes on. That's what's going to make the difference. So, if they're interested, then go to Hank Kohler's Learn to Fish, or they can, like I said, they can still get. If they want to know a little bit more about me, just go to One for Water. The funding page on Facebook isn't up, but all of the posts and all the pictures from June 3rd to August 5th are still on there. They could go to One for Water and read through that and go, God, that was crazy. I don't know if I want to go with that guy or not.
I love it. We'll definitely put the links up and everything. Are you going to be doing anything for ice fishing this year?
Well, I've got I've got our normal friends ice fishing trip. I'm pointing to some guys out here like Rich and
I hope he does. I'm planning on going a bunch.
So, I will certainly try to take clients ice fishing, and I'd love to do it. Same thing. We can go up to my cabin in Minnesota and fish those lakes around there. I provide all the equipment and the lodging and everything for a very reasonable price. It'll be kind of iffy as far as what days I'll have available, and a lot of it depends on how soon we get safe ice.
Okay.
Yeah. But I am trying to get some of those friends I met this summer, up there, some people from Mississippi and people from southern Missouri. And then I've got a good friend, Jimmy Burrow, who used to live here. And you might have heard of his son, Joe. He won the Heisman a couple of years ago. He's a good friend, and he grew up in Mississippi. So he's been ice fishing with me in the past, and he just loved it. And it's such a different thing for him to do. So we tried to do that last year, and then COVID hit. So I've already got some trips kind of in the calendar, but there'll be some other days. We ought to try to get us up to our cabin in Minnesota. And get you fishing some of those lakes,
or around here too. I mean,
we'll definitely do that. And then make sure to tell that guy, Joe Burrow, I got him on my fantasy football, so hopefully tell Joe to throw some good touchdowns.
I talked to Jimmy a couple days ago, and he said he's good to go. He's ready to roll.
Just making sure.
Hot off the press.
Do you guys have ice in November by chance up in Minnesota, or is it
at times?
Okay,
at times
enough for him.
Not
for a normal individual.
A lot of times my first trip will be up to Upper Red Lake.
Okay.
Because it's shallow. It'll start getting 4 to 6 inches walkable ice earlier than other places. Further south, like around our cabin, it wouldn't have ice yet. And Lake of the Woods, because of how big it is, it probably wouldn't have ice yet. Upper Red Lake has been my early fishing trip for the last few years up at Washkish. And it's been good for walleyes now. And last year you could keep 3 of them. So, I mean, it's some nice, tasty eating.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I was asking, because if people are listening to this point, we might be going up there in mid-November for the hard water fishing expo.
Cool.
We supposedly are press, I guess.
That's awesome.
I don't know. Supposedly. I don't know. We'll see. But we're going to go up there, and that's why I was just wondering, because we're going to go up there to Minnesota. Blaine. Obviously near Minneapolis. So I was just wondering, but if not,
what is it, like 20th of like around Thanksgiving week or so?
Yeah, well, 19th, November 19th.
Yeah, a lot of times then we're still casting for bass in those lakes, and it may be snowing on us, but you have some of the big dogs put the feed bags on those lakes. Oh yeah, you won't catch as many, but you can catch a toad.
Right, we might have to hit you up.
Yeah,
there, I'm just saying we'll be up a little bit north in November.
There you go.
So we'll let you guys know on that.
Sounds good.
This has been awesome. We're, like I just said, we want to come here for the Cyhawk weekend and just have you guys and have, you explain to us how the trip was and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here and just entertaining us by telling your stories and everything. So I definitely appreciate that. I'm definitely going to put all the links and everything for you. And let's go have some more beers, guys.
All right.
So.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Kit. Thanks, Granny.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.